Welcome to Manova Summit. My name is Tom Evers. I'm the Executive Director of the Minneapolis Parks Foundation, and I'm honored and thrilled to be here to introduce our next guest and to thank Dan. I want to note that Dan is a product of Minnesota, where I think we are close to being a blue zone, particularly Minneapolis. I'm the Executive Director of the Minneapolis Parks Foundation, and many of you may know and many of you may not, but Minneapolis has one of the greatest urban park systems in the world. It's been ranked #1 in the country for the past 6 years. And the Minneapolis Parks Foundation is trying to further that legacy. 140 years ago, we established a body, an elected park board, that really dedicated to making Minneapolis become a city within a park, connections between our trails and our rivers. So as you're here for this conference, make sure you get outside and see this amazing park system and see it connected from Nicollet Mall down to the Great Mississippi River, or through Loring Park to the Walker Sculpture Garden. Really, it is about connections in this city. And the Parks Foundation is working to make sure we fulfill that legacy so that the rest of Minneapolis, the northern edge of the Mississippi River, is connected to our neighborhoods. Because as we all know, zip code, where you are born, determines a lot of your health outcomes. And so whatever we can do to ensure that a child born in a zip code that has connections to parks and open space is really critical. And so that's why it's an honor to introduce our next guest today, Gil Penalosa. Gil is a friend and a colleague, and he's also just one of my role models. He is a passionate urbanist. He has been thinking about how our cities should be designed and enacted to connect everyone to parks, public spaces, and probably most importantly, each other. Gil is the founder and chair of 880 Cities, based out of Toronto, but really impacting cities worldwide. And he immigrated to Canada from Bogota, where he was a commissioner and really helped establish that park system to become world-renowned too. He is a graduate of the Anderson School at UCLA, where he was deemed one of the most influential alumni of that prestigious school. And he continues to be seen as one of the leading thinkers of urban design in this country. And from my perspective, and in Minneapolis, we are learning from him ourselves. And so I am thrilled and honored to introduce one of the greatest thinkers, I think, of urban design and cities today, Gil Penalosa.
Thank you. What a great event, talking about health and creating cities. We have a fantastic opportunity, but also a huge responsibility. Today we have about 3.5 billion people living in cities. Within the lifetime of our students here at the University of Minnesota, within their lifetime, we're going to have 7.7 billion people living in cities. We're going to double the amount of people that live in cities. And this can be very civilized. This can be very nice. So if this means that half of the homes that there will be around, half of the communities that we'll have in just 40 years haven't been built yet. That's a great opportunity. In the US, we're going to have about 120 million more people in the next 40 years. And all of the forecasts show that. That means that in the US also, 1 out of 3 homes haven't been built yet. So how are we going to do these cities? It's very clear. If this is going to happen in the next 40 years, then we should see what has happened in the last 40 years. This is how we have been building cities in the last 40 years. Totally segregated, sending the poor people to the worst places where there's no public transit, no jobs, no education. We've been focusing on cars, 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 and not on people's happiness. And this is the kind of cities that we have been building. And we have not even solved the issue of mobility through these investments. No city has solved mobility. And now the emerging countries like Russia and China and Brazil and Mexico, they are doing exactly the same things. So we need to do things differently. This is all of Florence, Italy, and one highway intersection at the same scale. You know, cities do not decide the what. It's at the national level, how many people we're going to have. But the cities do decide the how. And this is how we've been building cities in the last 40 years. Not very people-friendly. Imagine a child, an older adult, a handicap. It's almost like a slave to a person with a car just to go for an ice cream. So the last 40 years have not been good. So it's very clear that we got to improve the cities that we have today. But we also got to create great cities for many, many more people. So the question is, how do we want to live? So I want to go through 8 messages for healthier cities. The first one is not about the money. I was commissioner in Bogota in my previous life. Now I live in Toronto. But when I was commissioner in the first term, we built over 200 parks all over the city. And I learned that it's not about the money. Also, and now I advise many cities, but before I was doing. We built over 200 parks all over the city, small ones, big ones. This was one of them. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left, and there were not even sidewalks, nothing for almost 27 years. Why there was almost nothing for 27 years? Because change is hard. Change is hard in the Twin Cities, change is hard in Bogota or Copenhagen or everywhere, because you try to change and the cave people show up. You know them, the citizens against virtually everything. But we gotta find solutions to the problems, not problems to the solutions. We gotta find that little crack through the window and run through it. We cannot accept no for an answer. So it was like this for 27 years, and in 4 years, we turned it into the nicest park for passive, for active, for contemplative recreation, for some activities that people can do at their own pace and at their own time, others that even just looking at the birds, listening, smelling the roses, or things that people can do with lots of people. But it's about the uses and the activities that really makes parks click. And that's why it's also so exciting. That's why it's also so important. And this is a very well-used park. But also we did the ciclovia. What is the ciclovia? I found a small program of a few miles and a few thousand people, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. Sunday mornings, we pop it up, and people come out to walk and bike and skate. How do we do it? It's simple. You open streets to people, you close into cars, and the magic happens. We have people of all ages. We do 75 miles every Sunday and holiday of the year. Young and old and rich and poor. All people come. It's something that is really fantastic, but not everybody wants to walk or bike or skate. So along the road, we do aerobics or Tai Chi or cha-cha-cha, anything. But the umbrella is physical activity. And this is fantastic for physical health, for mental health, for emotional health. We get about 1.7 million people every Sunday and holiday. 1 out of 4 citizens. But this works in cities of 10,000 people, 100,000, 1 million, 20 million, like Mexico City. But this is nice because it changes minds. All of a sudden, we realize that the streets are public space. They belong to all of us. When we look at a city from the air, 1/3 of the city are streets, and they belong to all. This is also about social integration. That's why it's so nice that we see it in all kinds of cities. The city of angels and cars, they got the ciclovia, and Portland, and India. It works everywhere. In the US, some cities are doing it. Unfortunately, so far, just 2 or 3 Sundays per year. So it's almost like an event. But this should not be an event like the 4th of July. It should be monthly, or at least weekly, so that you get all of the health benefits. And if it's a city like the Twin Cities that you have a strong winter, okay, do it from May to October. This is great because we meet each other as equals. And meeting each other as equals is something that is very, very powerful. Second, let's create 880 cities. 880 cities. Now I'm the founder and chair of 880 Cities, and I've been the chair of World Urban Parks. Now it's ambassador, and I have the I've been lucky to work in more than 350 different cities all over the world. 880 cities is not about walking or cycling or public transit or parks or streets. Those are the means, not the end. The end is how can we help create some successful cities. And it can be places where people dance and they have the DJ, like DJ Vika, who are living longer. She's an entrepreneur. So it's about that. It's about having vibrant cities, but with healthy communities. And it's very, very important also that people of all ages, all ethnicities, all backgrounds live happier. Let's just think, what if everything that you did in the Twin Cities, everything, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, the park, the school, the library, the restaurants, everything had to be great for an 8 and an 80-year-old. It's not 8 to 80, it's 8 and 80 as an indicator species, because if it's good for the 8 and it's good for the 80, it's going to be good for everybody, from 0 to over 100. We need to stop building cities as if everybody was 30-year-old and athletic. And let's build great cities for all. That is the concept of 880 cities. It's simple, but it's powerful. 3, let's work on having sustainable mobility everywhere. When I'm talking about sustainable mobility, I'm talking about walking, riding bicycles, using public transit, new uses of cars. But obviously, nothing as important as walking. Nothing. Because every single trip begins and ends walking. We walk to the car, we walk to public transit, we walk to places. By the way, walking and cycling is not a joke. Walking and cycling should be safe and enjoyable everywhere. Walking and cycling is not a frivolity. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for most people. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for all children and youth. You might be the son or the daughter of the wealthiest person in the US. If you're under 16, your only individual mode of mobility is to walk or to bike. So doing it safe and enjoyable. It should be almost like a human right. Unless you think that only the people who have the money and the age and the desire to have a car have a right to individual mobility. That's why we're also talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because everything is linked to everything. Walking, that's how we were created. Walking, just like the birds fly or the fish swims and the deer runs. People, we walk and we enjoy walking so much. We use senses. All of a sudden we're walking and we see the children playing. Or the kids going to school, we hear the birds singing. We go in front of a coffee shop or a bakery, we smell the aroma, and we walk. The children walk, the older adults walk. We walk in the summer, we walk in the winter. We walk, but we need to make it safe. Safe. This isn't safe. Yesterday, people driving cars, killed more than 741 people. That's not civilized. That's more than a person every 2 minutes. They are not accidents. Accidents is when they could not be avoided. They are incidents. So we need to work on Vision Zero. No one should be dying on the streets, walking or cycling or in cars or in public transit. And some cities say, oh, I'm Vision Zero, but then they don't put money or they don't have actions. So if you don't put money and act, it's not Vision Zero, but it's zero vision. So we need to act. If we're going to improve walking, it's not a technical thing. It's not about doing sidewalks like this one. Everywhere. This is Miami. I was there last week. It's not about not letting cars on the sidewalks. Sometimes we don't even do sidewalks. We are telling this woman every day, you're a second-class citizen. By the way, sidewalks is the most important infrastructure of any city. Because sidewalks, that's where we meet each other as equals, young and old. We go to a new city, that's where we get a sense of belonging to the city. In the sidewalks, we meet boyfriends and girlfriends, and the person that sells flowers and vegetables. The sidewalks. It's not on the streets, cycling, public transit, on cars, we go from point A to point B. On sidewalks, no. On sidewalks, sometimes we go places. Sometimes we just enjoy the sidewalks in the winter. Children catch Pokemons, or people take public transit, or we go to get fruits and vegetables. We go for coffee and we take 2 hours because we go and we sit and we watch people go by and we chat and we socialize. Sidewalks are so important. The sidewalks actually reminds us that walking is much more than walking. When I go to Buenos Aires, I see people dancing tango in the sidewalks. Maybe the sidewalks should be part of the family of the parks. Parks and Rec should manage sidewalks instead of public works. And if we're going to put walkability, it's simple. There are a few things we got to do. We got to lower the speed in all residential areas, 20 miles an hour. Not because 20 is plenty sounds nice, but because if you get hit by a car at 20 miles an hour, there is 5% probability of being killed. At 40 miles an hour is more than 80%. These are not technical issues. If we put a small island on a crosswalk, we eliminate more than half of the incidents. Why are we still doing crosswalks without an island? When we know that they're going to save lives, because people cannot cross in one traffic light, so they wait in the island for a second traffic. And people of all ages, older adults are being killed twice as many as the proportion of their population. So sustainable mobility obviously is not just about walking. It's also about riding bicycles, taking transit, new uses of cars. I'm not saying that this is the end of the car industry, but the way we use cars is changing very, very fast. When we talk about driverless cars now, autonomous, all driverless cars, and we do these beautiful drawings where everybody fits, and we say with driverless cars, we are not going to have traffic jams. I don't think it's the driver making those traffic jams. It's the car. So if we don't change our behaviors, if we don't change how we do cities, we're going to have this kind of traffic jams. So it can be great or it can be horrible. It's up to all of us. We need technology to work for people, not for people to adapt to technology, which is very different. And of course, riding bicycles. Imagine in the Twin Cities in the summer, kids going to school, older adults going to places. I mean, we need to be bold and ambitious. You can be as good as Copenhagen riding bicycles, where people go everywhere. And people say, oh, but in the Twin Cities it's cold. Well, in Copenhagen it's cold in the winter, it's hot in the summer, it rains all year round. But nevertheless, 41 out of 100 trips are done on bicycle. And they're not saying, oh, that's enough. No, now they want to go to 50%. And men don't wear shirts in the summer, or women special shoes. If we're going to improve bikeability, you know, it's not, last week I was working in Florida, and I saw these kind of things. You know, they paint a line in a city, in a road where it's 50 miles an hour. 3 lanes for cars. Who's going to ride bicycle with the only thing between you and a car is a painted line? Or this other one, 55 miles an hour. I mean, when you do any infrastructure in the city, including bicycle infrastructure, if it's not safe for an 8 and for an 80-year-old, it's nothing. Nothing. Don't even call it a bikeway. We gotta, if it's not good, this is the test. Is it good for children? Is it good for older adults? Maybe get the decision makers on a road, do a couple of blocks with a protected bikeway with toys, and have them ride on one side, do nothing on the other, have them come back on the other. And in 1 minute, they will know that we need protected bikeways. The only thing that get more people cycling, the only thing is we need to lower the speed where people live. All residential streets, all of them, should be 20 miles an hour. Seattle last year, they lowered the speed on 2,400 miles of roads to 20 miles an hour. And the other thing we need is a grid. So everything I said about 20 miles an hour for walking is the same for cycling. But we need a grid. We need connectivity of AAA bikeways. What is AAA bikeways? It's for all ages and all abilities. But connectivity. People will not bike if 30% is safe, but the other 70% is in the middle of the cars. And of course, we got to think of daytime and nighttime and winter and summer and rain and snow and everything and make it safe. And if you don't have the money or the political will to do it permanent, okay, do it not just painted line, enhance the painted line and put some plastic bollards, and it's going to make a world of difference. This is why people bike in Copenhagen, because you can get from anywhere to anywhere safely. There is clear connectivity. Let's keep in mind that the quality of the infrastructure in our cities is a symbol of the respect that we have for people. Yeah, and if we're going to put public transit, one of my brothers now is the mayor of Bogota. He says the civilized city is not the one where the poor have cars. It's the one where the rich use public transit. So we need to build great public transit for everybody. And of course, we need buses, and we need trams, and we need trains. But also part of it is marketing. I was with the mayor of Malmo, and he said, Gil, you know, our citizens didn't like the buses. So he got the buses He put a nose on them, he covered the wheels, and now they look like trains. Part of it is marketing. You know, part of it is dignifying. You know, sometimes we do this horrible thing in public transit. We cover the windows. It looks ugly, but also it's dangerous. It's not safe at night. You don't see anything inside. I mean, sell advertisement, but sell it below the window. Don't cover the windows, and especially don't cover the windows of public transit promoting cars. Because then it's really a big pain. And then people say, where are we going to feed everybody? Walking, cycling, cars. Well, do the mobility math. Do you want to have one of these or 140 of those? Do we want to have one of these or 145 of those? We clearly know that walking, cycling, transit takes up a lot less space. Parks. You know, the biggest problem in parks in America and probably around the world is management. So many cities think that management is synonymous of maintenance. No, maintenance might be 20% of management. So of course we need to pick up the garbage and cut the grass, but more important, we need to have grandparents and grandchildren doing bread. We gotta have uses, we gotta have activities. We need to have people walking and cycling and playing chess and having lunch and chatting and taking a nap. It's about the uses. Management is about having volunteers, but having the tools for the volunteers. Management is about asking the citizen engagement before, during, after you do any activity. What is it that we are going to do? Management is having the resources, human, financial, physical. It's about having equitable access throughout the city. Cities like Los Angeles have a lot of parkland, but all of it is in one part of the city. 2 out of 3 children do not have a park within walking distance. It's about having a good fit so that not all parks have the same things. It's about safety, but it's not about putting signs like in London, England. I saw this, beware of the thieves. That's like an open invitation to the thieves of the city. You need a lot of police in parks and public places when they're empty. You don't need police when they're full. So the lowest cost of security for parks is uses and activities. I find many cities where it's easier to find the millions to do the parks than the thousands to make it work. You say, oh, let's do a move in the park. We don't have money. Let's do we don't have money. Let's do walking groups. We don't have money. But then they do these iconic parks. No, we need those uses, those activities. That is what makes parks click anywhere in the world. And of course, in the Twin Cities, you got fantastic park systems. And the uses like this. I bring people to the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Every year they're fighting each other to see which one has the best park systems in the US. But keep it up. Don't be complacent. See how Copenhagen is at 41% cycling, but they want to go to 50. So in the park system also, keep moving forward. This is great. People say, should we have small or large parks in our city? Well, unfortunately, you need to have both because they satisfy very different needs. The small neighborhood park is where we meet our neighbors. It's where we develop a sense of solidarity. Which is that if we know our neighbors and something is happening, we go out and help. If we don't know, we stay inside. But we are not going to be able to play soccer or baseball in the neighborhood park. So we need to have the medium-sized parks. And we're not going to be able to go canoeing, so we need citywide parks, like gorgeous parks along the Mississippi River that you have with beautiful trails. So we need a citywide park system with small, with medium, with large. Not just with soccer fields. We need active recreation, passive, contemplative. 5, don't copy, because people say, oh, we want to copy. No, don't copy, but yes, adapt. Everybody learns from everybody. People learn from what you're doing in the Twin Cities, but the Twin Cities can learn what people are doing in other places. Melbourne 30 years ago would not have been in the top 300. Today is one of the top 5 cities in quality of life. So when people say cities don't change, no, they do change. With the proper leadership and the proper citizen engagement and the proper goals. For example, they put art all over the city, but not art for the people at 60 miles an hour, for the people at 3 miles an hour, people walking, trees. Look at the streets. Without any trees, you put trees, and it totally changes. Then people walk, people bike, people enjoy the business, improving the public places. They had all of these laneways, and they turn into magnificent, vibrant places. So we can learn, we can adapt, and we can improve. It's not because we're going to do exactly the same things. Rotterdam was built after the Second World War, was rebuilt around the car. Well, in the last 8 years, they have done things like looking for bike parking. They put it a little bit underground and nice. Look at this. It's not that hard. You have this. It looks like a car garage. You take the cars on one side, and you make it so nice. So that is the idea. It's not that hard to go from here to here. It's creating cities for people. This is what Rotterdam and other cities are doing around the world. Who would have thought 10 years ago that Times Square was going to be pedestrian? Well, they made it pedestrian. So be bold. By the way, change is not unanimous. Even today, 26% of the people in New York don't think this was a good idea. Honestly, listen to everybody, but at the end of the day, the general interest must prevail over the particular. And if it happens there, you know, it can happen anywhere. Barcelona. Barcelona is already a good walkable city, but now they want to improve by 66%. They have this beautiful grid where people walk and bike and use cars. So now they're creating super blocks where only in one street people walk, bike, take cars, in the next two is pedestrian priority. So people are doing it. And last week, Barcelona announced that the tree canopy, they're going to increase by 30% in the next 10 years. 6, it's about the benefits. This is not about walking or cycling or parks or streets or sidewalks. This is about creating twin cities for all people. It's about healthy cities. And there are so many benefits of all of this. It's good for culture, it's good for education, for recreation. And you got to have different arguments for different people. For example, from the point of view of health. Is this what the future looks like? You know, the issue of obesity is not how people look, it's that it has to do with heart attacks and respiratory problems and anxiety and depression and cancer. In the US, more than 1 out of 3 people are obese. These are the 35 wealthiest countries in the world, and the US is in last place. It doesn't make any sense. And people tell me, oh, Gil, it's always been like this. No, it has not always been like this. 20 years ago, we didn't have any state with more than 20% obesity. Today, we don't have any state with less than 20% obesity. Things are getting worse. So we need to have better school lunches. We need to have farmers markets all over the place. We gotta have urban gardening everywhere so children and adults and older, everybody will learn that tomatoes don't come out of a factory. And of course, we need to be active. We just heard in the blue zones about the importance of being active and all, because all of this is totally in sync. Being active is going to be good for heart disease, for high blood pressure, for mental health, for everything. It's not about doing marathons. It's just 60 minutes a day for children, 30 minutes a day for adults. And remember, so there is an urgency of being physically active. But the only way in the Twin Cities, and actually everywhere, that people are going to be physically active is if they walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. There is no other way, no other way. It's not about organizing the Olympics. It's not about, I mean, you might play soccer twice a week, or you might play tennis twice a week. But we need people to be physically active 5 or more days a week. And the only way that large portions of the population are going to do it is if they walk or bike as a normal part of everyday life. So we need to build fantastic infrastructure. We need to promote it. It has to be infrastructure and programs. And of course, all of this sustainable mobility and parks is going to improve our public health. But there is no health without mental health. Issues such as loneliness. Loneliness is a huge problem around the world. In the UK, they created the Ministry of Loneliness last semester. Loneliness increases 29% the probability of heart disease, 32% stroke, double the possibility of dementia. That's why also uses and activities in the parks is so critical. It's not just infrastructure. We got to have the program. It's not just doing a trail and say, oh, I see people walking. Yeah, you see the few people that are actually walking. You don't see the many that are not. Depression is the world's leading cause of disability. And if we have contact with nature, it's going to improve our mood, our cognitive attention. That's why when you're investing in nature, here in the Twin Cities and everywhere, it's so critical. Because it's not just because it's going to look nicer. No, we're going to be healthier. If our neighborhoods are green, it's going to lower the depression, the anxiety, the stress. So we got to have nature everywhere. We need to have nature at home, at school, on the sidewalks. We need to have it where we work, we live, where we play. We got to have nature everywhere. And we got to go out. into nature 52 weeks of the year. This is not just a summer thing. 7. I hope that every one of you become a guardian angel of the gentle majority. Who's the gentle majority? I say gentle majority because they are not the squeaky wheel. They are the children, the older adults, the poor. When you do public meetings, the children are doing homework. The poor have 2 and 3 jobs. They don't have time to go to a public meeting. Let me give you an example. So any decision that you make in any city, always think, how will this affect these people? Even if they're not screaming there. The children, imagine in the Twin Cities having playability everywhere. You go out on the sidewalk and there's a swing for the children. You are waiting for public transit and there's a small parquet. It's not about the money. All of this is doable. It's about having an open mind and actually doing and being proactive. And this is going to make a city that is fun and exciting and happy and playable. Playable for people of all ages, especially for children. And you see it in their faces and in their body expression. And you're going to say, great, because it's going to be fun and games. Yeah, it's going to be fun and games, but playing is also how children learn. Playing is how children develop their muscle strength, their sociability, their cognitive thinking, their sense of belonging. They learn to socialize and make friends. So we should have playability everywhere. Every kid should have playability. By the way, what is a child's favorite toy? Another child. So let's facilitate the possibility to have children with other children. You know, this is going to be the future city builders. So every community in the Twin Cities and everywhere should have a goal that every child should have a park within a 10-minute walk. You know, in the U.S., 1 out of 2 children have a park within walking distance. 1 out of 2 do not. So the only city that is 100% is San Francisco. So let's build those parks. And this is totally doable. And if we don't have a park, let's turn schools into school parks. I've said now older adults, you know, we're living longer, not longer, much, much longer. It's really exciting. 200 years ago, we didn't have, all of these are the countries in the world, we didn't have any country with a life expectancy above 45. Today, we don't have any with a life expectancy below 45. You know, the people that have elderly to 65, half are alive today. In the U.S., 100 years ago, very few people. Now it's growing. It's going to continue to grow. The 65 plus are going to double. The over 80 are going to quadruple. And people are happy and enjoying life. And they're not thinking about retirement. They're thinking about retirement, how to get re-engaged. Maybe the biggest waste of resource are the people that retire. We cross them out as if they had died. Except that they got 20, 30, 40 years left, and they are healthier, and they are wealthier, and they are more active. They could be teaching immigrants English. They could be tutoring kids in the schools. Our universities should have 20, 30% of the courses for older adults. Older adults are hungry of knowledge. They want to learn about music and history and gardening. Here in the U.S., you have doubled the life expectancy in the last 200 years. We have learned how to survive. But with all of these issues of climate change and public health and so on, you know, climate change that some people still don't want to believe in it. We must learn how to live. And this magnificent conference, that this is the first year, and hopefully it will be for many, many years, is about that. It's about learning how to live. Because a large part of it is about infrastructure. A lot of it is about programs. It's about our built environment. And we got to promote this intergenerational, these magical public places where people can meet with each other, the grandparents and the grandchildren. And of course, we're going to need benches and walking paths. But also, it would be nice. We know what we need, the restrooms and the drinking fountains and the benches. We just got to do it. And the poor. I'm talking about equity. I'm not talking about equality. The other day, someone did this cartoon that I think is really nice. Equality. No, some people are starting so far behind. Then some might need 2 and 3 boxes. Others might not need any. And then someone said, if that's equality and this is reality. But in the Twin Cities, maybe you're smarter. It's not about moving boxes from one place to the other. Maybe it's about tearing down walls. But we have not been doing very well. You know, the U.S. is the wealthiest country in the world, and 13 million children live in poverty. Out of the 35 wealthiest countries, the U.S. has 1 out of 5 children living in poverty. South Korea, 1 out of 16. Denmark, 1 out of 37. We need to do better. And from the point of view of mobility, 2-car households are spending 20% of their income on mobility. If they walk and bike and took public transit, it would be only 4. So it would be like winning the lottery. And this is going to be great not only for the personal income, but also for the community, because instead of being spent on cars built in China or Mexico, you're going to spend it in the local economy. And last, all of these issues are not technical, are not financial, they are political. With a big P, everybody needs to participate. This is not a time for citizens to be spectators. We got to create alliances between elected officials and public sector staff, but not only planners. Public health is probably the most important, because everything is about public health. And we got to get environment and finance and everybody, and the community, the universities, the activists, the media, and then we got to move from talking to doing. And people are going to tell you, we're doing. Of course you are doing, but we got to do more, and we got to do it faster. So Manova, let's do it now. Thank you.